Okay, so my plan was to schedule all of these X-Men movie rewrite videos so that by the time I was finished with all of them, the New Mutants movie would be out in theaters, and then I could quickly throw together a video where, even if I absolutely love the New Mutants movie, which I was fully prepared to do, I could still offer some minor changes to it, trying to fit it in with my own fictional X-Men movie universe. But then the day after I finished editing my fix video on Deadpool 2, where I hinted I would be tackling the New Mutants movie next, it was announced that the movie would be rescheduled for the 900th time. So I'm doing something I haven't done before. I'm doing a fix video on a movie I have not seen yet. At this rate, I don't know if I will ever get to see it. As of this recording, they haven't determined when or if they will release the movie. Knowing my luck, they will probably put it on Disney Plus, a streaming service that I don't have and have no plans of getting. So while it might seem presumptuous to do a video offering changes on a movie I haven't seen, I want to make it clear I have been excited for this movie for a long time. Maybe it's that I like to root for the underdog, and seeing millions of people actively rooting against this movie makes me sad, so I wanted to see it succeed. But since I've done videos trying to iron out the continuity and improve the overall quality of the other live-action X-Men properties of the last 20 years, I might as well offer my thoughts on how a New Mutants movie could fit in with what I've already done, even if I haven't seen the movie. So I'm fully prepared to believe that the actual movie, if it ever does come out, will be better than what I'm laying down here. I'm just a dummy who loves the X-Men a little too much and is making videos about movies he would love to see. So let me tell you some of my ideas about what I would have done in the New Mutants movie. So the plot, straight from Wikipedia, is 5 young mutants just discovering their abilities while held in a secret facility against their will, fight to escape their past sins and save themselves. The characters are Cannonball, Sunspot, Mirage, Wolfsbane, and Magic. I don't really need to change any of these characters since none of them appeared in any of my versions of the previous movies. Sunspot did appear in the Days of Future Past movie, but not in my fix for it, so we're good. Wikipedia also lists Cecilia Reyes as being in the cast, and in a trailer, she seems to be the doctor in charge of this nightmare facility the team is trapped in, which is weird because in the comics, Cecilia Reyes is a good guy. Maybe there's a situation where she reports to someone else and she really wants what's best for the kids, and her boss is actually evil and just wants to torture them. We don't know, the trailers don't indicate that. But I would just take Reyes out of the movie. Nothing against Alice Braga, who plays her in the film, but it just isn't in the character here to be working for a haunted house that is mentally torturing children. I would replace her with Cameron Hodge, who started off in the comics as an old friend of Angel, but then we later find out he is very anti-mutant and is part of this organization called the Right, which hunts down mutants and wears smiley face masks. We even see a smiley face mask in the trailer, so maybe the Right is in the movie, I don't know. The premise that some evil anti-mutant human kidnaps mutants to experiment on them and torture them is pretty solid, and playing it like a horror movie kind of worried me when I first heard that that was what they were going to do, but I think the evil people will be using Danielle Moonstar's ability to manifest fears in physical form against the whole group. If that's what they're doing, then that makes a lot of sense to me. We do have a thing in one of the more recent trailers where Dr. Reyes asks each of the group to explain their mutant powers, and Sunspot mentions that he accidentally burned his girlfriend. The Days of Future Past movie got his powers wrong too, so I don't hold this against the filmmakers too much, even though they said they're big fans of the Claremont Sienkiewicz New Mutant stuff, so they should know better. But Sunspot does not have heat powers. He gets his powers from the sun, but he has super strength, and that's it. So I would make that a thing in the movie instead of generic energy powers. We also see in a trailer that Illyana has the Soul Sword. Long story short, Illyana has her naturally occurring mutant abilities, but also her sorceress abilities that were learned, which is where the Soul Sword comes in. I'm sure they're not getting into limbo and magic in this movie, but if it was me, I would not do any of the supernatural stuff at all. I don't mind aliens or supernatural in the X-Men comics, but in the movies, I think it's a little tricky to do all of that stuff. And since the Soul Sword isn't connected to Illyana being a mutant, you can easily remove it and just say that she has teleportation type powers, but she isn't able to control them yet. Yes, in the comics, she teleports by using limbo, but you can still avoid that while more or less recreating her powers from the comics. She's also able to move forward and backward in time with her powers, and while I wouldn't mind that eventually, I'd want her to discover that a few movies down the line if you get multiple New Mutant movies. And speaking of Illyana, she is the younger sister of Colossus, who has been in a few of my X-Men Fix videos. If you recall, in my video on X-Men Apocalypse, the X-Men flee the country and are now splitting their forces between Australia and Muir Island. So why is Illyana here if she knows about the X-Men from her brother? Maybe her mutation didn't kick in until after X-Men Apocalypse, and before her parents could contact the X-Men, Cameron Hodge somehow convinced them that she would be better off at his facility. And with the X-Men on the run from the law anyway, they figured, yeah, why not? That's about all that I would change just based on what we've seen online. But I do have an idea on how this could fit in with what I've done in my other X-Men Fix videos. So the team is stuck in this facility, they start working together, they're almost out of the building when Magneto shows up to rescue them, kinda like Professor X rescuing the kids from X-Men Origins Wolverine. But since I didn't have that scene in my fix for that movie, you can do it here. Having Magneto be an ally to the New Mutants would be a reference to when he was the headmaster headmaster of the school for a few years in the 1980s. But you might not know about that if you don't read the comics, so you might think, oh snap, Magneto's got his powers back, and he wants to recruit these guys into a new brotherhood. Are they going to join him? You wouldn't get any of these questions answered in this movie. This would just be a tease for New Mutants 2, the squeakquel. But since I'm 99% sure we're never going to get a sequel to this movie, and therefore I won't be doing a video on it, I'll explain where my head was at with this because I love you guys. My idea would be that you'd finally be doing Genosha, since these movies never got around to correctly doing that. With mutants being more hated and feared than ever after Apocalypse and his horsemen killed millions of innocent humans, I'd want Magneto to look at the state of things and finally say, nope, this is a lost cause. He's tried to fight for mutants before, but it never works out, and the odds are stacked way too high against him this time. As far as he knows, even the X-Men have abandoned ship, since nobody's seen them in America since the events of X-Men Apocalypse. After he was depowered and captured in my fix for X3, he made a few friends in mutant prison, other mutants who were depowered and slowly got their powers back like he eventually did. That's a thing from the movie that I kept, showing Professor X slowly getting his powers back over a few movies, so it's to be expected that Magneto did as well. Maybe when everyone at the prison thinks he's a harmless old man now, he bursts out along with a few friends, one of whom was Hard Drive, a minor character from the comics who can basically merge with technology. Magneto sold his new allies on the idea of a nation made for mutants by mutants. The humans want the mutants gone, fine, we'll be gone, we just need a place to be gone too. This would scare the willies out of the human governments, having that many dangerous mutants all in one location, with none of them really knowing what they're up to. They say that they want to be left alone, but do we trust them? Instead of the humans just handing a big island to Magneto to run, which I guess is what they did in between X-Men Apocalypse and the Dark Phoenix movies that we got, we will say that Hard Drive used his tech magic to pull up some very heavy blackmail against numerous leaders of the United Nations. Magneto quietly told them, what you do in your personal life is your business, and if you guys hold a vote to give mutant kind their own island, I won't tell anyone about any of this. In a weird way, this is Magneto's way of honoring his fallen friend, which we never got to see him do in my fix videos, because once Magneto has Genosha, he would have no reason to cause trouble. This would be his own version of the school, training mutants in the use of their powers and giving them a chance to live a normal life, just not in the Homo sapien world. And that would have happened sometime after Apocalypse, but before the New Mutants movie. When you get to the end of New Mutants, Magneto is going around rescuing mutants who are being persecuted by humans. In New Mutants 2, Electric Boogaloo, Magneto somehow convinces these guys to become his vanguard. He's not looking for trouble, but he suspects trouble is looking for him. A callback to, I feel a great swell of pity for the poor soul who comes to that school looking for trouble. So the New Mutants would basically be the Genoshan National Guard. With magic teleportation powers, they could be sent out to rescue mutants in danger and easily bring them to the island too. If you recall, in my video on Logan, the mutant clones are trying to make it to Avalon, which I mentioned was a thing in the Age of Apocalypse and in the 2099 comics. But I had completely forgotten that in the 90s, Magneto called Asteroid M Avalon. But in my fix verse, we will find out Avalon is the codename for Genosha. We know Magneto is a big fan of the Once and Future King, so it's fitting that he would be using terminology from King Arthur for his own mutant paradise. Why not just call it Genosha in Logan and when it's briefly mentioned in Deadpool 2? Personally, I'd like for the Magneto reveal in New Mutants to be a surprise, as much as that kind of thing can be in this day and age. And if you throw around the name Genosha, especially the Mutant Paradise version and not the brainwashed mutant slave version, before this movie comes out, people would likely figure out that Magneto would be coming back. But like I said, one of Magneto's homes was called Avalon in the comics, so throwing the name Avalon around in my version of Logan and Deadpool 2 might clue people in that Magneto was operating behind the scenes anyway, I don't know. Now, why would the characters be calling Genosha Avalon in universe? I figure the human government secretly give Magneto Apocalypse's island that one of his horsemen created, and they say, don't leave, don't do anything, we want to not know that you guys exist anymore. And so Magneto has to officially stay on the island, and so do all of his subjects. But he's secretly going out rescuing mutants in need of rescue, like the New Mutants, and he's also sending his agents to do this as well. Spread the word, there's a place that mutants can go so that they won't be hunted down and experimented on. What's it called? Well, we can't call it Genosha because then the human governments will figure out that Magneto is stirring stuff up. What if they call it Avalon? Then Magneto can have some plausible deniability. No, I've been here this whole time. I didn't set up a mutant underground railroad to get more people here to safety. This might all seem needlessly complicated, but like I said, I think it would be a cool reveal, so yeah. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ian McKellen would have been about 78 when this movie was filming, and my timeline for all of the X-Men movies compresses the events into the span of about 5 years, and I would have New Mutants take place not too long after X-Men Apocalypse. And since McKellen was 61 when the movie first came out, this would be a bit of a stretch. For the first New Mutants movie, I would kind of cheat and just show a familiar gloved hand reach out and move a metal door or something like that. Maybe you also see his helmet from behind or his cape. Then at the end, the New Mutants can see someone in the shadows, and you hear Ian McKellen's voice. If you do New Mutants 2 Wrath of Khan, you can get an old man makeup version of Michael Fassbender, who in my fixes was in X-Men Origins Magneto, which replaced First Class in my fix verse. And then he wasn't in Days of Future Past or Apocalypse, but he was probably in a few other prequel movies leading up to the founding founding of the school. So by now, both in real life and in my hypothetical Fixverse, people associate Fassbender with Magneto as much as McKellen. This might be weird to people, but I think this would be more likely than getting McKellen to come back. Yes, he did come back to do Days of Future Past, but his part required very little action stuff, and we would still probably want his character to do at least some action scenes. So you might think this looks weird, and it might take you out of the movie, but I think it's preferable to having characters be in their mid-30s for 40 years, so I'm okay with it. But if you're not, I guess your other option is just recasting old Magneto with a completely different actor, but good luck finding yet a third actor who is absolutely perfect as Magneto, which is why I chose to go with Fassbender, who we already know and like. So even though over half of this video had nothing to do with the actual New Mutants movie that we may or may not get to see someday, I'm sure the uncertainty here is going to age very well in a few months, I like these ideas. I've always liked the era where Magneto was leading the New Mutants and when he was leading Genosha about 15 years later, and I thought if you were going to do those things in the movies, this would be the way to go about it. So tell me what you guys think of this one. I liked it, and I hope you guys did too. In the meantime, I've got other ideas for future videos where I offer fixes on movies that could have been better. So while this is the end of my take on the X-Men, stick around, you might see something else on this channel that you like. Until then, have a great day.